Everything in entrepreneurship is skill development. If you're stuck or if you feel like you're lacking confidence, it is literally a skill that you need. Go find it, learn it, and execute fast.
Chris Marr, founder of The Authoritative Coach, has spent 15 years transforming professionals from order takers into strategic partners. His coaching methods have helped small businesses to nine-figure enterprises break free from people-pleasing behaviors that sabotage profits. In this episode, Chris reveals his 12 conversations framework that prevents scope creep, explains why you need to be liked by your clients, and shares scripts to reset struggling relationships. If you're giving away free work or constantly trying to justify your value, this shows you how to step into authority and become indispensable. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Sherrie. It's great to be here.
What was the moment that you decided people-pleasing was a topic that you wanted to address in the workplace?
For me personally, I think we all go through our own journey, right, and uncover these things for ourselves. And so I've got my own experiences with it. But then as I started to teach other client-facing professionals how to turn up with authority with clients, right? Instead of being an order taker, actually lead, become a strategic partner or turn up as an expert with clients, I found that there was a big gap between where people were, need to be liked, and people-pleasing, and where they actually needed to be. And so as I started to go down that road, I started to see this big gap. I was like, well, what's holding people back here? Why do we turn up where we're supposed to be an expert, where a client is really looking for confidence and clarity and competency as well, but yet we turn up and we diminish all of that. We undervalue our own expertise, we diminish our own authority. If we knew what we were doing, I don't think we would do it. It's this need to be liked that drives these behaviors. As much as I saw it from my own journey, it was quite enlightening for me to see it as I was teaching other people. I was like, what's this gap? Why can't you have this difficult conversation? Why are you avoiding these topics with your clients? And why do you feel like you need to be a supplicant to your clients? Why can't we get to this peer level with our clients? That was it for me, Sherrie, was just seeing that time and time again, how people were diminishing their own authority and ultimately how that was holding them back from being the best, from them doing their best work as an expert. Right, so they were not only diminishing their authority, but they weren't able to get their expertise across. Because they weren't able to do that well, their clients weren't really taking it on and doing the work they were supposed to do. And so nobody was winning, right? So the client-facing professional is not doing their best work, and the clients aren't getting the results that they're supposed to be getting, and nobody's doing their best work across the board. And so that, to me, felt like a problem worth solving.
The first thing I thought about when I was just looking at this issue was if you were unable to identify that this is an issue within your business, you can't fix it. So you're unable to actually grow your business and to scale your business. What is the first step once you identify that you're not showing up fully as yourself to actually break in this pattern?
You've hit a major challenge. Even for me as a person that helps solve this problem, is that if you don't know that this is a problem for you, then you aren't going to pursue any path to fix it, right? So you've got this unconscious, incompetent phase of learning anything, right? Which is the first thing we need to do is shine a light on where the problem is. That's why I developed the People Pleaser's Path to Authority assessment. So this is a 5-part assessment that people can take that helps them to figure out, am I actually turning up as a people pleaser? I don't know that anybody likes the idea of being called a people pleaser. I don't know that anyone likes the idea of even identifying as a people pleaser. But I think what people need to recognize is that people pleasing is manifesting itself in ways that you probably don't even realize. And it's often the case when I'm going through these exercises with clients. They're like, oh, that's where it's happening for me. So I think we have to, like you said, we have to shine a light on where this is happening. So let me give you a couple of examples, right? So usually it's got something to do with boundaries. So what I mean by boundaries really in the professional sense is more like scope of work, for example, or where clients are asking for more time than they've actually paid for. You end up doing free work, or your profit margins are being eroded by clients asking for more time, more work, whatever that might be. You end up doing stuff for free. Discounting is another place where you're not able to communicate the fee you're supposed to be getting paid, so you undersell yourself, you're too cheap, and you end up not making any money, and you end up potentially resenting the work that you're doing or resenting your clients because you're doing work that you're not supposed to be doing, you're spending too much time doing it, and you can't make any money. And so it can manifest itself in fees, boundaries. Oftentimes it can manifest itself in the inability to have difficult conversations. So can I challenge my client? Can I push back on the client? Can I say no to my client? Can I have those difficult conversations? So a client might come to you with a new idea, for example, and say, hey, Chris, it'd be awesome if we could do this project. Instead of going, oh, sounds amazing, let's get into it. You go, wait, let's stop there for a second because we've already got all this work going on over here. Where's this come from? Tell me more about what's driving. Like, you can push back, right? That's you overcoming your need to be liked there as well. And then I would argue that oftentimes it manifests itself ultimately in time or in your calendar. Your clients are asking for too much from you. You aren't able to say, actually, no. And it's about managing all of those elements. One of the exercises that I get all my clients to do is think about the client relationship. If you're listening to this or watching this, think about the relationship you have with your clients. Think about 6 months into the relationship, the work you're doing, and think about what's all the problems and the friction and the frustrations that come up that either slow us down or are problems in terms of really getting the work done, getting the results, whatever that might be. For a web designer, it might be the client isn't giving me the content that I need for the website. For a graphic designer, it could be that the client comes back and says, I don't like any of the work that you're doing. I teach my clients to have what I call the 12 conversations. These are 12 conversations that have to happen before we start the work so that we can get ahead of problems before they become problems and ultimately set the conditions, boundaries for the work that we're about to do. And so this is really about leveraging your experience as a client-facing professional and packaging up all these conversations that need to happen so you can set the relationship up for success, set the work up for success, set yourself up to be the expert that you're supposed to be, and ultimately set the client up to get the result that they're looking for. And so I've obviously, Scherrie, thought about this a lot, right? And just think about what we actually need to do to not give in to our people-pleasing tendencies and ultimately step into our authority, recognizing that our need to be liked is actually holding everybody back from being successful. There are practical things we can do to overcome it, to make sure we set the conditions for success in the work that we're doing.
What do you say to someone who does not look at it as people pleasing, but offering an elevated amount of customer service? Someone who may be in a highly service regulated industry who feels like they have to go above and beyond to maintain those clients because there are so many other professionals that may offer similar services.
So this comes down to, are we really attracting the right type of clients? Okay. Are we delivering the service that we want to deliver? Because that helps us to deliver our expertise. Do we want to be supplicants and order takers, or do we want to be strategic partners? What's the type of relationship we actually want to have with our clients? And are we operating, because you could argue that if you are in a business where you're worried that if you don't deliver a certain type of service that's like your competition, your clients will leave and go to your competition, then there's probably an issue. Like, what's driving you is what I'm saying. If it's a fear of something, then I would argue that's the wrong driver. I would question almost everything about who your clients are, what your business model is, and why you're afraid they might leave. To get even more practical though on that, Scherrie, is that if a client came to me and asked me this, I would ask myself, what assumptions are they making? You're assuming that your clients aren't getting enough value, or the question ultimately is going to your clients and asking, what do you find to be the most valuable part of the work we're doing together? What is it that you want from all of this? What's the outcome that you want? I think a lot of people, Scherrie, make assumptions about these things. I'll give you another example that comes up oftentimes as well, is that clients come to me because they're worried. They make assumptions and they start to worry about stuff. Oh, what if they don't think it's valuable? I need to give them more to make it feel valuable because of all these other external influences or factors. Are we going fast enough? I think we're going too slow. Let's speed things up. They forget one thing. They forget to ask the question. So, Scherrie, as a client, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the pace that we're going at right now? 1, snail's pace, 10, too fast. How would you rate it right now? Great, let's get on the same page, right? Out of everything that we've done over the last 3 months, what would you say has been the most valuable? What do you feel has gone really well? What do you think hasn't worked? What do you want to cover over the next 3 months? What does that look like for you? What's going to be the most valuable? You want your clients so focused on the work that they're doing with you that you have this level of indispensability with them that you don't need to worry about your competition. They're not even looking at the competition, right? There's this rule I find that, like, if your client was to leave you, how quickly would they find a replacement? So, in other words, if they left you today and they could find somebody to replace you within a day, then your unique value that you bring isn't as unique and valuable as you think it is because it can be replaced so quickly. But if it takes them weeks or months or never able to find somebody like you, then you've got this true unique value that you can bring. Those are, maybe I overthink it a little bit, but that's like the kind of broad brush stroke that I would take this is what's driving it. It's a fear, which ultimately is usually from external sources, which I think is important to recognize, Scherrie, because a lot of your need to be liked and the reason that you have people-pleasing behaviors is because you're making a lot of assumptions about what's happening on the outside world, what people think of you, what you're worried about other people are going to say or do because of something. So you could argue that a fear that you're not providing enough value is taking you into a place of people-pleasing because you're ultimately going to try and add more value to please people, but you've no idea if that's really the right thing to do. And so what I would say is shift from external factors influence actions to an internal piece of work. What's the work that's most meaningful for me to bring? What's the unique value that I can bring to this place? What are the people that I want to work with? What kind of work do I want to do? What are the values that I bring? What's my beliefs and philosophy around all of this? And I would argue that's the most important work to do to overcome your people-pleasing tendencies is to actually increase your self-respect, increase self-assuredness, and move towards authority.
So, Chris, as an admitted people pleaser, this
Mm-hmm.
is good information. And it's great if I'm listening to this or viewing this and I'm like, okay, going forward, these are the things I'm going to do, the steps I'm going to take.
Sure.
But what about these relationships that we've developed with long-term clients? And we've
Yeah.
established a set of behaviors that they just expect. Can I show up tomorrow with this new attitude and this new way of doing things? How do I ease this into the relationship?
I would argue, like, this is probably the hardest part. So everything that we do, I always say there's 2 paths, right? The first path is to do your utmost best work to start every new client better than the last. Every new client is a great time for a fresh start, a better approach, right? We can take all our experiences, good and bad, and turn them into a better relationship next time, right? So there's always that loop. I call it a client insight feedback loop. We're constantly going round and getting better all the time. What you're saying, though, is what about the relationships we already have? And I would argue this is hard, but what we have to look for is opportunities, right? Opportunities to take the relationship to the place that we want it to be. So what could that look? Where do we get the chance for a fresh start with current clients? Okay, and I think there's multiple ideas here that we can look at. Number one is a team change. The director changes, the lead changes. That's an opportunity to say, hey, every time a team changes, they go through this cycle, right? Which is like that morning, storming, forming, performing, right? Similar with clients, when a client team changes, that's a good opportunity to get everyone and go, right, we've got a team change, we've got people changing, let's reset the conditions for success. So team change is one. The other one is the project scope change. It might be a new phase of the project, or it could be a new project entirely. That's a good time to go, right, let's just pause here while we tackle this new project. And you get the chance to reestablish all the things that you want to change about the relationship. How are we going to communicate? What does accountability look like? How do you work through this? Who's responsible for this and that? What do we want this project to look like in terms of success? When we did the last project, what went well? What didn't go so well? How do we make sure those things that didn't go well last time go better this time? So you take this leadership role to do better. Can we do better work? Can we make sure that the things that didn't go well before go better this time. I think team change, project scope change, or whatever the project is, like it could go from we were doing the website, now we're doing a branding project, or we've gone from a branding project to a print project. When there's a change, it's an opportunity to make change. We would look at making small tweaks to the current relationship as things develop. The thing, Scherrie, I think is important here is that you and I, as the experts, keep a temperature check on the relationship. Where is this relationship right now? Is it in an ideal place? Is there things I'd like to improve? How am I going to do that? You're looking for this opportunity. I like to call it a sort of a yes and energy. In other words, how do I continue to move and develop and grow? Where's the opportunity to do that? Because it's easy to somewhat complain about your clients. Oh, I wish they were a bit more like this, or I wish it was a bit more like that. But instead you go, what can I do about it? Where's my opportunity to perhaps change things? I think there's more opportunity than you might realize at first.
And speaking of opportunity, you have actually packaged a lot of this into your book. We may not have access to this podcast all the time, but we can go out and grab that book. Tell us what we can expect.
Yeah, so the book is a portion of the stuff that I've gathered from thousands of hours of coaching. I worked in the States for about 4 or 5 years, and I worked with 7, 8, 9-figure businesses. Through time doing this with clients, I was able to pick out the good things, but all the things that go wrong and how to handle them. So what you'll find in the book is like really short, punchy chapters with like really specific scenarios of like when a client does this is how you do it. When a mistake happens, like this is how you handle it. When you're struggling with something, you should do it more like that. And so these are really short chapters, really practical. I've heard people talk about keeping it on their desk as a handbook for their client work that they're doing. And it'll get you started on dealing with the most common challenges and how to handle them in an effective but an authoritative way. So I'll give you an example. A client might come to you and say, hey, Scherrie, we've been working together for 6 months, but these results, it's just not paying off. The people pleaser is going to be like, we did this and we've done that and all this work here, we've got so much work to do and it's been amazing. The more authoritative, self-assured, grounded person with confidence is going to be more like, what do you feel like we missed? Where do you think we went wrong? And be more curious and self-assured. Like, the work that we're doing is valuable. I'm going to figure out where's this all coming from first before we do anything. Just to give you a snippet, theme in the book is how do we stay grounded in our confidence and work with our clients through the challenges in the relationship. If you're a client-facing professional, you know that not every relationship is going to be unicorns and rainbows. There's going to be problems. But the perspective shift here is that if they've got problems, who do you want them to go to? You want them to come to you. And so our job is to help them through problems. That's the way I look at it. So every time a client comes to us with an issue or a challenge, put a smile on your face and say, or even just internally, I'm so glad you're coming to me with this. Let's work through it together. Just to give you an idea of the philosophy behind the tactics in the book. It's a really helpful, practical book to help people overcome people-pleasing and ultimately be indispensable to their clients.
With all this good information, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Sure.
If you had one piece of advice for us people pleasers to share with entrepreneurs on how to play big faster and not people please, what would it be?
My advice is this. If you want to play bigger faster, is getting your head around the fact that all you need to do is collect skills. That's it. So instead of feeling stuck, I wish I could, instead of feeling like that stuck feeling that you get or that lack of confidence, some people call it imposter syndrome. If you knew that all you have to do is go onto YouTube and find the teaching that you need, the skill that you need to practice, you can move so much faster, right? Everything in entrepreneurship is skill development. That's what I would say is just see that if you're stuck or if you feel like you're lacking confidence or you're anxious or worried about something or you just feel like you can't tackle something, it is literally a skill that you need. Go find it, learn it, and execute fast. And that will speed so much up. I know from my own past, it's like I probably wasted years just being stuck when it was really just a skill that I needed. And because we're in 2025 now, everything's available to us. Click of a mouse. I would say skill development, number one. The more skills you have, the more valuable you'll be, the faster you'll move.
Chris, thank you so much. How can our listeners or viewers contact you to find out more about people pleasing and get some of the resources that you have available?
The single best place, Scherrie, is Instagram at the Authoritative Coach. You'll get all my recent videos there and you'll be able to DM me there. And so if you want to do the People Pleasers assessment, all you need to do is go into my DMs, message me the word SCORE, and I will send you the assessment and you can find out where your people-pleasing gaps are. And also, I'm right there. So if you've got a question you want to ask me or you're curious about something, you can dive right in there and I'll be there to answer your questions. Instagram, the Authoritative Coach.
Chris, thank you so much.
Thanks, Scherrie.
Until next time, play big faster.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Play Big Faster podcast. Want more entrepreneurial content?
I like this.
Make sure to subscribe for future episodes.
Already subscribed.
I just clicked on it.
Don't forget to like and leave a review. Share with a friend that needs this in their life.
I think you need this more than I.
Oh, and make sure to follow Scherrie on IG at Scherrie Speaks. And remember to play big faster.